Introducing slope. Slope is the measure of the steepness of a line. It is the comparison of two quantities by division. Slope is expressed as the change in y divided by the change in x. You may sometimes see change in or difference in written with the delta symbol. It still means the change of y divided by the change in x. Another way to think about slope is rise over run. This is probably what you're most familiar with. Rise is the change in your vertical distance, y. The run is the change in the horizontal distance, x. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. Look at the lines on the following graph. What are their slopes? The vertical and horizontal distances for each are labeled, so you can use those distances to determine their slopes. Line AB is labeled as having a change in y of 3 and change in x of 3. You can confirm that by counting up and over the number of units. We'll go up 3 units and over 3 units. All points up 3 and over 3 fall on the same line. Rise 3, run 3. 3 over 3 will simplify to 1. Therefore, the slope is 1. Next, let's look at line CD. Line CD looks steeper than line AB. What do you think will happen when you calculate the slope? It should be greater than the slope of segment AB. Let's see. We rise up 4 units, and we run 2 units. We can simplify our slope to be 2. The slope for EF should be less than either of the other two segments since it's not as steep. Let's use rise over run again. Rise up 1 and run 5. 1 over 5. When you calculate the slope, it is 1 over 5, which is smaller than the other two. Slope can be classified in 4 ways: positive, negative, 0, and undefined. Look at the examples of each and see if you can determine why it is classified that way. Let's identify some points and see what happens. For our first example, we have a positive slope. When you count the change in x on a line with positive slope, you always move to the right. You will also notice that the line slants to the right. That means the highest point shown on the graph will be on the right. We rise up 2 and right 2. 2 over 2 simplifies to 1. Next, let's look at a negative slope. When a line has a negative slope, the change in x will always move to the left. A line with negative slope also slants left. The highest point on the graph will be on the left. When you use the formula to calculate slope from the 2 graph points, you will actually get a negative slope. Up 2, left 2. Rise 2 and run will actually be negative 2. That simplifies to negative 1. When a line is horizontal, the x is changed, but there is no change in y. You can count right or left, but with a horizontal line, the change in y is always 0. Therefore, the slope of a horizontal line is always 0. Again, we know that because 2 points on this line, we don't have to rise up or down. So our rise is 0. Our run could be 2. And 0 over 2 will always be 0. Undefined. If a line is vertical, the y changes, but the change in x is always 0. And if you recall from rational numbers, when any number is divided by 0, it's always undefined. So again, we can find 2 points on our line. We can rise 2, but we don't run to the right or to the left, so 2 over 0. Undefined. Example 1. Find the slope of the graphed line. Step 1. Pick a starting point on the line that falls exactly on the grid. Label it point A. Step 2. Pick an end point on the line that is above the starting point and that falls exactly on the grid. Label it point B. Now we're going to use rise over run, the change in y over the change in x. We will have to rise up 3 and to the left 2. Remember, since you're moving to the left 2, we'll have a negative run. So using rise over run, you'll see that your slope is negative 3 over 2. When you're trying to determine if the slope is positive, negative, undefined, or 0, remember to always start on the left side and read to the right. For example, let's say I have a little truck. Here's my truck, and it's driving down the road. It needs to go from the left to the right. Well, notice that if this truck continues to move, it's going to go up this hill. That means we have a positive slope. On this graph, if my truck moves left to right, it will go down a hill. So we have a negative slope. Graphs that are vertical can help us create the letter U. This will help us remember that it is undefined. A graph that is horizontal helps create the letter Z, so we can remember that this line has a slope of 0. Complete practice 1 and 2. If you need to, you can go back on the video for extra help. Here are the answers for practice 1. Here are your answers for practice 2. Now that you know how to find the slope of a graphed line, you can also match the graph of a line to information you're given about the line. Here's how. Example 2. Given a line that passes through the point 2, -2 with a slope of -3, determine if this graph matches that line. Step 1. Rather than picking a starting point, use the point you are given. Locate 2, -2 on the grid. Step 2. Write the slip as a fraction, which would be 3 divided by 1. 1, 2, 3. 1. Start at the beginning point and count up 3 units to change in y. From there, count 1 unit left because the x component is negative. Since you're on the line, this is the graph of the line you are given. Complete practice 3. Press pause, and when you're ready for the answers, press play. Here are your answers for practice 3.